There's a quiet shift happening in the world of desktop computing, and if you've been paying attention, you can feel it building momentum beneath the surface. For years, people have been talking about the year of the Linux desktop, but it never quite arrived in the way many expected. Instead, Linux has been evolving steadily, refining itself, becoming more accessible, more polished, and more practical for everyday users. Now, with the upcoming release of Zorin OS 19, it feels like we're closer than ever to a version of Linux that doesn't just compete with mainstream operating systems like Windows 11 and macOS, but genuinely challenges them in ways that matter to real users. What makes this moment so interesting is not just the technical improvements, but the philosophy behind it. Zorin OS has always positioned itself as a bridge between worlds, a system designed for people who are curious about Linux, but hesitant to leave the familiarity of Windows or macOS. Instead of forcing users to adapt to Linux, it adapts Linux to users. That approach has guided every version so far, but Zorin OS 19 looks like it's taking that vision to a whole new level, pushing the boundaries of what a beginner-friendly Linux distribution can be while still appealing to power users. Imagine turning on your computer and being greeted by an interface that feels instantly familiar, yet smoother, faster, and more refined than what you're used to. That's one of the key promises here. Zorin OS has always been known for its customizable desktop layouts, allowing users to switch between Windows-like, macOS-like, and even unique hybrid interfaces. In version 19, this concept is expected to become even more seamless, more intuitive, and more deeply integrated. The idea isn't just to mimic other systems, but to give users control over their environment in a way that feels natural rather than overwhelming. Performance is another area where Zorin OS 19 is expected to make a significant impact. One of the biggest frustrations people have with modern operating systems is how heavy they've become. Systems that once ran smoothly on modest hardware now struggle under the weight of background processes, telemetry, and bloated features. Linux, by contrast, has always had an advantage here, and Zorin OS takes that advantage and refines it into something practical. With version 19, the focus is likely to be on even better resource management, faster boot times, and smoother multitasking. This means older hardware gets a second life, and newer hardware feels even more powerful. But performance alone isn't enough. For Linux to truly compete on the desktop, it needs to solve the usability gap, and this is where Zorin OS has consistently stood out. Installing software, managing updates, connecting devices, handling files, these are everyday tasks that need to feel effortless. Zorin OS 19 is expected to improve on all of these fronts, making the system feel less like a technical tool and more like a polished consumer product. The Software Center, for example, is likely to be faster, more organized, and better at helping users discover the applications they actually need. One of the most exciting aspects of this upcoming release is its approach to compatibility. For many users, the biggest barrier to switching to Linux is the fear that their favorite applications won't work. Zorin OS has tackled this challenge in creative ways, integrating tools that allow users to run Windows applications with minimal effort. In version 19, this compatibility layer is expected to be even more robust, reducing the friction even further. The goal is simple, but ambitious. Make it so that switching to Linux doesn't feel like giving something up. Security is another area where Zorin OS quietly excels, and it's becoming increasingly important in today's digital landscape. While mainstream operating systems often rely on reactive security measures, Linux distributions like Zorin OS are built on a foundation that prioritizes stability and control. With Zorin OS 19, users can expect even stronger security features, better privacy controls, and a system that respects user autonomy rather than constantly collecting data in the background. This is a major selling point for anyone concerned about how their information is handled. Of course, no modern operating system can ignore the importance of design, and Zorin OS has always had a strong aesthetic identity. Clean lines, smooth animations, and thoughtful layouts make it feel modern without being overwhelming. Version 19 is expected to refine this visual language even further, introducing subtle improvements that make the system feel cohesive and polished. It's not about flashy effects or unnecessary complexity. It's about creating an environment that feels comfortable and efficient. Another area where Zorin OS 19 could make a big impact is in its ecosystem. While Linux has a vast library of software, it can sometimes feel fragmented, with different distributions offering different experiences. Zorin OS aims to bring a sense of consistency, making it easier for users to know what to expect. This includes better integration with online services, improved support for cloud storage, and smoother synchronization across devices. The goal is to create a system that fits naturally into the way people already use technology. Gaming is also becoming a more important part of the Linux conversation, and Zorin OS 19 is likely to benefit from the broader improvements happening in this space. Thanks to advancements in compatibility layers and support from major platforms, Linux gaming is more viable than ever. Zorin OS doesn't need to reinvent the wheel here. It just needs to integrate these advancements in a way that's easy to use. For many users, this could be the final piece of the puzzle that makes Linux a realistic daily driver. One of the most underrated aspects of Zorin OS is how it handles updates. In many operating systems, updates can feel intrusive, interrupting your workflow or forcing restarts at inconvenient times. Zorin OS takes a more user-friendly approach, giving you control over when and how updates are applied. With version 19, this process is expected to become even smoother, reducing downtime and making maintenance feel almost invisible. Accessibility is another area where Zorin OS has made meaningful progress, and it's likely to continue in version 19. A truly modern operating system needs to be usable by as many people as possible, regardless of their technical background or physical abilities. This means better support for assistive technologies, more intuitive settings, and a design that prioritizes clarity and ease of use. It's not just about adding features, it's about removing barriers. What really sets Zorin OS apart, though, is its sense of direction. Many Linux distributions are driven by technical goals or niche communities, which can sometimes make them feel disconnected from everyday users. Zorin OS, on the other hand, has a clear mission: make Linux accessible without compromising its strengths. Version 19 feels like a continuation of that mission, but with a level of maturity and confidence that comes from years of refinement. There's also a broader context to consider. The desktop computing landscape is changing. Users are becoming more aware of privacy issues, more frustrated with forced updates and hardware requirements, and more open to alternatives. At the same time, hardware is becoming more diverse, with a mix of powerful new machines and older devices still in use. Zorin OS 19 sits right at the intersection of these trends, offering a solution that's both forward-looking and inclusive. It's worth noting that the success of an operating system isn't just about features, it's about how those features come together into a cohesive experience. This is where Zorin OS has consistently impressed. Instead of overwhelming users with options, it presents a curated experience that feels complete from the moment you install it. Version 19 is expected to build on this foundation, refining the details and smoothing out any remaining rough edges. For content creators, developers, students, and everyday users, the appeal of a system like Zorin OS 19 is clear. It offers the flexibility of Linux without the steep learning curve, the performance of a lightweight system without sacrificing modern features, and the freedom of open-source software without feeling fragmented or unfinished. It's a combination that's surprisingly rare in the world of operating systems. As we look ahead, it's hard not to feel a sense of anticipation. Zorin OS 19 isn't just another update, it represents a step forward in the evolution of the Linux desktop. It's a sign that the gap between Linux and mainstream operating systems is closing, not through imitation, but through thoughtful design and user-focused innovation. Whether you're a longtime Linux user or someone who's never tried it before, this release has the potential to change how you think about what a desktop operating system can be. And maybe that's the most exciting part. For years, Linux has been seen as an alternative, something you try if you're curious or technically inclined. But with releases like Zorin OS 19, it's starting to feel less like an alternative and more like a genuine choice, something you can use every day without compromise. The future of the Linux desktop isn't some distant idea anymore. It's taking shape right now, and it looks more promising than ever.